All right, we should be good to go. So this is actually game number 8 from Invincible. This is our 8th lecture. Shusaku is playing against a player named Kadono Tadazaemon, and he was actually Honimbo Joa's oldest son and a really strong player. He acted as kind of a mentor to Shusaku, and in April of 1843, I guess Shusaku got to the point where he was playing on Sen I Sen, which means that in 3 games, Black would take Shusaku, or sorry, Shusaku would take Black for 2 games, and only White for one. But after he changed to that handicap, he actually did really poorly. So Shusaku only won 2 games and got one Jigo after that. And this is the first game after the handicap got adjusted back down. He had to go back to all black. So Shusaku at this point probably wants to, prove himself, right? Because the handicap is just, he had to go backwards a step in the handicap. Opens normally for black. White, on the other hand, approaches right away. So this is sort of the theme of the game. We know we're going to have a really interesting game here, and it's a pretty remarkable game. There's a lot of fighting, a lot of exchanges, and yet the game stays close throughout. I think you'll be pretty surprised by it, actually. Black plays an interesting 5/4 stone in the top left corner. And white plays also somewhat of an interesting 3/5 move. At this point, it would be normal to play in the bottom right corner, but Shusaku actually decides to finish this enclosure here. So at this point, he's got a nice possible extension at A, also some nice development potential on the right side. And white continues a sort of fighting style. He could just take the empty corner, that would be fine. Black would probably take this pincer in that case, which is pretty nice. So white's attitude here is he actually wants to figure out what black's going to do in the top right before he chooses, which type of corner play to do in the bottom right. Um, Black plays the most severe move. This is the one that can lead to taisha, right? But let's take a look. If black plays this common one, common at the time, which we've seen before, this would be pretty much what white wants. He gets a nice shape on the top, and he's also got A next, which would frustrate this high E16 stone. So black doesn't want to play like that. He plays here, and white actually doesn't wedge to play the taisha. He hanes here, and this is a joseki. It's almost never seen nowadays, but it was somewhat common at the time. The commentary for this game is by Miyamoto Naoki again, by the way. And he said this was pretty common at the time. So first let's take a look at the result. Black has to help his stone get more liberties, so he comes out at A. Now white has to fix the cut, and the best way to do that is to play on the tiger's mouth vital point, right? So black can't cut at this moment. Black has to fix his shape, and white takes the 3/3 point. Now these stones need a base, and black can extend to here. So this is how the game goes. And white's reasonably happy because he doesn't have to worry so much about a pincer on the top anymore, and he still has sente to play the bottom right corner. So that's pretty good. Let's take a look at the taisha. This would be okay for white as well. We've seen this before. This is just the most basic variation of taisha. White can connect these stones now. Black's got to get out, right? Get those stones out. White's cornerstones come out. Black helps the 2 stones. White helps his center stones. And this is like the most basic taisha, and so the 9-dan, professional commentator showed this and said this would be fine as well for white, but he chose to play this way. Now this extension to B looks a little far, right? Like white has this C stone and he can do something with that. Can anyone tell me why it's okay to go all the way to B? There's a specific reason why black can get away with going that far. Maybe somewhat subtle, maybe not, depending on your level. Oh, 15, good. Yeah. So what Hiro is pointing out here is that black has sente moves against this O16 stone. So if white tries to move his A stone, it's not that easy because, black can get sente moves in this area and then just try to swallow it. So that's why black can go all the way to B. Now white plays another 3-5 point. This sort of 3-5 is the type that I'm familiar with, that I really kind of understand the meaning of through my lessons with Mr. Yang. Essentially, what white is doing here is that black is already low on the right side. So it's really hard for black to play the normal approach move. If you don't consider the rest of the board, A is the most usual, most profitable approach to that corner. But it would be really hard to do in this case. So let's take a look at it. So black actually has to play here, which essentially gives the corner to white. That's pretty nice. So let's see why black can't play this one. This one's going to be too low and over concentrated. Since R11's already low, white will just force black to play low on the right side like this. And it's not going to be very good. He can push and cut, get another forcing move here, forcing moves here. That threatens to capture 2 stones. And he can get a result like this, right? And if you look at this shape, it's much too close. This A stone is pretty wasted now. So this would be a bad result for black. He's healthy, but it's too over-concentrated, right? Not efficient. So he plays like that instead, and white gets the corner. Normally in this Joseki now, black actually owes a move at A, right? These 2 stones would extend 3 spaces. But obviously, black's not going to play A when he's already got the B stone. That would be, again, way too over-concentrated. So he decides B is enough for now, and he just approaches, the last unfinished corner. And in this case, he doesn't have to worry about being over-concentrated, right? So he played the normal approach move. So he plays here. White makes an extension on the left side, right? This is something we've seen a lot too. 5-space ideal extension, so it's hard for black to come in between. And also the left side is valuable, right? It's the most valuable area on the board probably right now because black can develop there quite nicely from his Shimari. So white just extends over there. Black helps this stone. He gets up to the 4th line, and that's preparing to do something between white's extension. So how do we defend this area for white? What are some ideas if we want to stop black from invading? d8. Good, that's a good suggestion. That's not actually the move that Miyamoto showed. He actually said that is more of the slack move, but it's something good to think about. e6, d7. Okay, so we've got some ideas. We've got this one, and this one, I think. Okay, so let me show you what white played. Looks like updating my Java, I lost my sound, but that should be okay. Yeah, so white actually uses the active way. He makes this forcing sequence, right? So now these stones are already strong. So if black invades like around A, white doesn't have to worry about the marked stones, right? So he's taking care of one side already. And Miyamoto said that it's the more efficient way. This is less efficient. It looks pretty nice, and it's probably, I think it's pretty reasonable, but it's just not quite as efficient, not quite as active. Let me comment on this one. So this one, let's see, whose suggestion was that? All right, Shmeow. So this one's a little too high, unfortunately. It looks like you're making a high position, but black could still come in with an invasion, or he could still shoulder hit that, and then this high stone won't be that useful. So it's flying in the sky a little bit. Okay, so white has settled. Where for black now? Where would be the basic proper move? Or if you're not sure about the actual move, what would be the idea? Okay, so yeah, you've got the right idea. Not the right move, but the right idea. We're trying to help this one. Yeah, K3 would be more proper. Black actually doesn't play there. He doesn't play the proper move. He plays this one. He tries to go all the way, right? This is very kind of a fierce move. Yeah, and Jay's got the idea. Yeah, N3, Steve 20K. Good. This would be the proper move. These stones right here need a base, right? And the standard shape for doing that when you've got a stone on the fourth line is you can, do 3 spaces down to the third line. This one is the same idea, but it's too high, right? Black needs a base. He doesn't need the center influence. That's going to leave the skirt open, and then you're going to have to defend that anyway. So that's a problem. Right, right. So, for example, if you do need to defend here, which black does, it makes you wonder if black played here and white did this, black would not play Nobi, right? He would at least jump. He can do something better. So that's an interesting way of looking at that. Black didn't play this way because it doesn't put a whole lot of pressure on white. And white will take this really nice move now. He'll get the biggest move in the most open area, which is the top at this point. So his idea is to try and put enough pressure on this corner that he can, get more, essentially. He's trying to get more than just the regular amount. So what should white do then? We've identified that black didn't really help the 3 stones that he would normally need to. So what's the proper attitude for white here? Invade, pincer. Yeah, you're talking about pinching the 4 stones, right? Good. So what's our target? Is our target A, the A stone, or the B stone? Okay, so Nico says L3, so he's going after the A stone. Shmiao says the A stone. Any other ideas besides L3? Want to go after C stones? There are no C stones. H3. Oh, H3. Steve, 20k, 10k is strong. Yeah, H3 is correct. So if we look at this, what you have to do here, A is just a single stone, right? So consider, even if black loses that A stone, it's just one stone. Also, it's light, right? It's one stone, so it's easy to give up. The B stones, however, that's a commitment, right? This is 4 stones. Those are the ones that are more heavy, and those are the ones that black was supposed to defend. Right, right. Good, good, Jay. Yeah, so even if white plays here and black ignores, what can you do against that N3 stone? Really hard, right? There's no way to kill that stone. So this is a fundamental thing. You've got to go after the important stones. So white puts maximum pressure on those guys, which is pretty interesting, I think. Now, kind of the same question another way. Which stone should black be helping now? BK3? Are you saying K3 right now? Okay, okay, I'll use triangles for the possible moves. Okay, so you're saying K3 would be scary. Okay, Steve's on a roll. He thinks black should help the B stones. G3. Okay. H5. Okay, interesting. H5 is the closest to the move that Shusaku actually plays. He plays a solid, yeah, there you go, hero. He plays a solid one, right? So it's the same sort of move, a little less pressure on A than B would, but it's also stronger. It doesn't leave the knight's move. But so again, why is black helping the B stones? It's the same reason. We already established that for white, it's proper to go after the B stones, right? Because those are the important ones, and it's harder to attack A. Well, for black, it's the same thing, right? The B stones are the heavy ones. Those are the important ones. The A stone is only one stone. It's light, and it's really hard to surround. So black's just going to help his group, right? Not his single stone. And yeah, he's getting ready to do something against A. White, it's still not easy for white to do anything about the B stone. So let's go back and look at K3. So Shmiao, you said this would be scary, but actually, if white just jumps, black has played A, but he's hurt his main group, right? You see that? He's hurt his main group, so that's the opposite of what you want to do. So black plays nice and calm here. Future cut at like 04. Right. So I think Hero is saying that even this square group can be weak later too. So it could be possibly 2 weak groups, not just one. Here, white plays an interesting move. He plays 4th line, and this is pretty interesting. So let's take a look at why. Maybe more usual would be just to play here. Black's going to jump out, and then white will jump out. Miyamoto said that this sequence is somewhat sluggish. It's actually not that easy or profitable to settle on the bottom anyway. So if you're not interested in settling on the bottom and getting your base there, white's idea is that he might as well play on the 4th line. Black still needs to play this kind of move. And now white is 1 line faster than he would have been before. You see that? 1 line's a very big difference in a game of Go. So that was his idea there. He doesn't want to settle on this side anyway, so he just goes faster. And by being faster, now he's actually ahead on both sides, right? So that's pretty interesting, I think. Now, black actually plays that invasion that we were talking about earlier. It's pretty interesting, right? So we've got quite a number of groups going on here, A, B, and C. We've also got the D and the E stones. White actually makes several very strong moves in this game that kind of show the quality of player that he was. And the next one is one of them. Normally we would think about doing something with the A stone or doing something with the B stone. But white instead actually just takes this really big point. He knows that it's not easy for black to actually attack. So let's take a look. If white actually helps this stone, this would be the normal way, right? Make your two space extension. Then black gets to take this nice point. And that's what he's trying to avoid. So he's taking the nice point for himself, and he's going to be able to deal with the A stone later. So for black, white ignored us, right? So what's the move for attacking this white group? There's a nice vital point. We're not trying to kill, but we can pressure and we can link our stones up. Yeah, the angle move. You're really impressing me, Steve. D6. Yep, that's the same move. That's the same one Steve's talking about. Right there. Good. So white's got to respond to that. And he does. Here, black has somewhat of an interesting idea. He actually plays in this direction. This would be more solid, right? Make these solid. But black's idea here, Miyamoto thinks that black is trying to, he's kind of urging white to run with this A stone, which actually would be a bad idea for white. But that's what he's trying to get to happen. So white actually shows his strength again here. He plays another really great move. He jumps up. So he's not helping the A stone yet because that would be heavy, and I'll show that in a second. Instead, he's jumping, which raises the whole top position. Like if he can get a move at C, then he's got a really nice Moyo. And also B lends a helping hand towards A, right? It could help. Or even if A gets swallowed up, B already reduces the left side. So let's take a look. If white helps the A stone, he's probably going to do it like this, right? Answer Kosumi with the knight's move. Black will peep. White has to defend or he'll be cut. And this way is pretty heavy for white. So that's what white doesn't want to do, and that's why he plays differently. By the way, just in case anyone isn't sure, this knight's move is okay because white doesn't care if black cuts. That's way too slow for black to just get the single stone. B13. B13. Oh, better to do this first? Sente. And then fix. Yeah, so the idea here is that, you know, black killed one stone, but white split the left side, and that was his goal. It's not so much about the actual stone as getting something in that area. So in the real game, white jumps up. And now black makes sort of a resolute move. You have to be very sure when you play a move like this, right? Because you're pushing from behind. You're pushing white along the fourth line. So black is making a big commitment here to the right side. the right side Moyo. White, of course, is going to respond to that. And now black plays here, which may look somewhat slow or possibly too early. At least that's how it looked to me, but it's actually sente. So white has to respond here. So let's see. If white does something else, like raise the top, for example, black can push, play the vital point. This is what we can expect. This is the diagram that Miyamoto showed, and white is actually dead locally here. So that's pretty dangerous. So white just answers, and he's also got A next for himself, right? Black continues to push. White comes up to the 5th line. Black plays a Hane. And now is where white again shows his strength. Normally we would just answer at A, but that's going to be way too easy for black. So white decides to do something else. He starts a fight here. He plays the Hane, and then he comes through, cutting these stones off. So let's go back for a second and take a look at what would happen. Locally, this is the only move, right? That's just the shape. Unfortunately, if this happens, black can just grow the Moyo. He can play there and something like this, and it's just way too much. And the way Miyamoto put this, I thought was kind of funny the way he said it. He said that this is probably the diagram black was hoping for or expecting when he played this Hane, but white's not here to help black. That's how he put it. That's a pretty good lesson for me because a lot of times I just play, the shape and make it too easy on my opponent. Sometimes you have to change, right? You have to make a change because there's something special going on. So black fights back with this Atari. He's trying to, put pressure on these 2 stones. Giving it away would show, a huge lack of fighting spirit. It also wouldn't be enough. That's too much to lose. So, right. Yeah, I really like the way you put that. White's not here to help black. A lot of times we do, though, right? We play sente moves because they're sente, and they just help our opponent. So here, white gets the Atari in sente, and then he extends. That's kind of important. So let's look at the details here. First of all, a lot of times when there's 2 ways to Atari, you don't want to commit to one right away because you might not be sure which one's better. But in this case, B is no good. So let's take a look at why. If white tries to do this one, it doesn't really work because there's an Atari here, and then black can just come through on this side. So that means that white is never going to want to Atari from B, so it's okay to Atari from the A side. And he has a moment to do so right now. If he just extends, black can play here and here. And now it's a lot harder to use the Aji in that area. Also notice, this is pretty important to notice, is that with this Aji stone in there, white captures that, or black captures that, by the way, right now. That stone is not going to live, but it makes a difference with moves like A, right? Because even though that stone's going to die, it's taking a liberty from these 2 square stones, and that's really important. That makes A more powerful. So that's some detail stuff. B13 was not the move for white earlier. D14 was correct. Let's go back there really quick. Probably go to here and then here. You're saying d14? Because this way white gets sente, right? Yeah, I think this is where I would play, because it's sente anyway. If white plays A next, he can kill the 2 stones. So black really needs to do that, and then now white can do something else. Good. Okay, so in the game, white plays here. This is a really nice attacking move. You can see that these stones are getting surrounded. Black was just growing a Moyo, and all of a sudden he's getting surrounded in his own Moyo. Um, and Miyamoto's commentary here was that white is actually thicker in the center than it looks like because A is sente. So white can play A at any time, which means that the way he put it is that white is actually somewhat thick here. Black can't really fight with white. So what he has to do instead is really painful. He has to just, this is the kind of sequence you normally really want to avoid, but white's just gonna, or black's just gonna live here. He makes this snapback threat in sente. Because if white lets him capture those, then, you know, he can just save his group easily. White's not going to do that, so he finishes helping his group. But we can see that white has split black, right? He split black inside of his own Moyo. So that's not so good. White's going to connect his stones up. And right, that point of A that we've been, you know, seeing, it's a really important point, because if white plays there, black doesn't really want to come out with like an empty triangle sort of shape. So A is a really important point for the fighting for both sides. So black actually plays there now to protect the head of his stones. And now white plays somewhat of a funny looking shape, but this is correct. Miyamoto says that this is the correct shape, right, normally, but it's just a little too slack. This one is sente. If white plays A next, there's no way that black can kill the A stone, which actually means that black would be dead. So black has to play here. For instance, there's no way to cut those stones off, right? So black is dying pretty quick. So black has to defend. White has to keep helping his group. Keeps helping his group. And black plays here. So black has actually gotten really nice and strong over here. And while stuff on the right has been happening, I've kind of neglected to mention, but these 2 stones are getting, or these 3 stones are getting surrounded, right? That's pretty important. White has to worry about those. But for now, white's doing great because he's destroyed the Moyo. He just has to handle these 3 stones. He plays here, which is the correct shape, right? If black tries to push through at A, white can just block at B. He doesn't care if black cuts at C, right? He can just give the stone away. I'll show that in a second here. So this is the same idea as what I was talking about earlier. White's not really doesn't really care about the stones themselves. He just needs to get something in this area. I actually haven't read A. If A works, that might be okay. He probably can. Yeah, I think he can. Oh no, he can't because that's sente. Right? Almost. Not quite. White has L4. Oh, when L4? Now? Oh, yeah, now. Good. Yeah, so he could do that. So just to talk about the point, even if white couldn't kill those stones, he could just give that away, and he's still got something in the area, right? But black actually plays here. Now this is an important moment because white could use this opportunity to help his A group by playing at B, and that would pretty much make him alive. But he doesn't. He responds here, and that's actually necessary. So if white plays down here, he can settle, but then the problem is there's an attack here. And Miyamoto says this is too much to try. Those white stones, they're way too heavy. So that's pretty much Sente. White had to respond. And that gives black a chance to play here. White's going to answer, trying to get as much shape as he can. Black actually plays really severe. He's going after the shape. There's some Aji around this general area, but black is just strong enough to make this work. So the next move is another one of those really surprising moves from white. Just a really nice move. This group is not easy to handle, right? It looks really hard to handle this group, and he came to the same conclusion and decided that just running with it would be too heavy. So he plays this really nice vital point here, which isn't really connected to his group, but it's the vital point in this shape. And he wants to see what black's going to do, and then he's going to decide what he's going to do. This is a much nicer way of trying to handle this than just having a heavy group for the whole game. Black has to play here, otherwise white will, and that would be pretty thick for white. Miyamoto said that playing the Hane here, he essentially said that fighting spirit dictates this move rather than extending. White needs to play here, but it does leave the cut. And so now what black does is he peeps here. He's trying to get an exchange in. Like if white answers at A, which it seems like he needs to, then black can cut at B, and it's not so easy for his group to get surrounded with that exchange already made. But white plays another really strong move. Miyamoto called this one a brave move. And let's see why. Black actually answers, but black could just play here, right? And this is all dead. But he didn't. And the reason for that is white is so strong in the upper right now that if he plays another move, this is the one Miyamoto suggested, this whole thing for black, it's very uncertain whether or not you're going to be able to make that live. And it's actually, if it dies, it's actually bigger than the one on the bottom for white. So this seems like the proper answer because it helps black's group. It also puts pressure, still putting pressure on white's group, and he can continue the game from there. Now white gets to connect. Yeah, this game's really interesting, the trades they make. And also like he's offering a trade, right? When he plays this, he's giving black a chance to just kill this. With the idea that he can go after black's group instead. It's a pretty tense game. So white connects. Black connects here, which is a really important point. First of all, it's taking the eye shape away. Also, if white gets that point, it splits black's groups on both sides. So it may be hard for black to take care of everything if white gets that point. This part's pretty interesting. Miyamoto called this next sequence, he just called them inducing moves. So let's take a look at what happens. First, white plays this knight's move, threatening to make a connection. So black's got to answer that. Then he plays this one, which is again threatening to make some sort of connection. And so essentially the effect of those inducing moves is that he's kind of forced black to help white settle his group, right? This group that I've got marked now is pretty much settled. It's gained a lot of strength in these last few moves here. Just by playing moves that, black is just answering them normally, and it leads to something reasonable for white. Yeah, J9 is really pretty, huh? It protects that cutting point. Good point. Let's look at another possible variation. So what if black actually tries to swallow this? That's the question. White can't quite connect. Even though this looks ugly, white can't quite connect his stones. The problem is white's got some sente moves. The Aji I mentioned earlier in this area. So right now he can play sente. Do that in sente real quick. Go to connect. Black's got to keep him disconnected, right? That's the whole point. Make some exchanges here. Notice that black can't play at the marked spot anymore. And then white can play here. And since because of that A stone, black actually can't push and cut. So now if you take a look, the B stones are actually in more trouble than white stones are. So black could get in trouble if he tries to do something like that. So he played like this instead in the game. Follows up against this group. White turns into the corner. Black gets a really nice vital point here. Notice that black could play A later, and that'll cut some stones off. White's got to live. Okay, so now white has lived. Now black plays kind of a funny looking move here. It looks like Endgame, but he's actually got some idea behind it. For one, he's just trying to force white to respond, right? Pretty much just a sente exchange. But the other thing is, let me click white's move real quick. The other thing is he's preparing for this Aji that we've seen. In an emergency situation, now that he's got A, he could actually play here now and connect under, right? Because that O2 stone is protecting. So white doesn't answer directly, right? This is probably where I would play. Maybe a lot of you would play here as well. This is actually a 2-point loss for white because now black can just do the Hane and connect from A, and white will lose 2 points. And players like this aren't going to give up 2 points, right? So he actually Hane's here, trying to get this in sente first. 4 point. I guess it depends on how you count it, right? You're counting for both black and white. Right. I think Miyamoto was just talking about white's territory in that corner would be 2 points less. But you are right. If you take, you take into account black, then it's 4. So he plays here, and now black plays here. They're both paying attention to all of the details, right? This is a perfectly timed probe because since the A stones aren't alive yet, white's definitely going to answer this. If the A stones were already alive, white would most likely ignore this move, right? But at this moment, he wants to keep them separate. So he goes ahead and keeps them separate. And now black plays another really interesting move. He cuts here, and he wants to see what white's going to do. Let's take a look at, this is what Miyamoto called like the safety first response, would just be to live here, right? This is probably what I would do. In that case, white can get this nice Hane, which settles himself and puts a lot of pressure on the A group, right? Because the B stone's weak, and there's also still a cut to cut the C stone off. And in the bottom right, this is just a ko. Black can clamp here, and this would only be a ko. Just in case you're wondering, white can't play here because no matter what, it's going to be a snapback if, for example, white tries to do this. Oh, wait, that's not the case, is it? Interesting. So how does black answer this move? Q1, not R3. Oh, Q1. Oh, okay. So can't get the I's, right? Because S1 is going to remove that I. Good. Yeah, I did not see that. I was just assuming it was snapback, but it's not. You're right. I guess you can just... Okay, cool. Yeah, so that would be a ko. Black plays here as a probe, right? White is going to answer with either A or B. And it seems like A would be the better answer. But white plays B, and there's a reason for that. If white plays A, that means that black can get this A move in Sente, right? Because it's Atari. And then black can live in Sente. That's what Hiro was saying earlier, right? A little while ago. So white's trying to fight against that. He's saying, no, you can't live in Sente. But that lets black come out here. Things are starting to get dangerous, right? Because we've got this whole string of stones, which are not alive. We've also got black's A group, which is not alive. And so that's what white goes after now. He says, okay, well, I'm just going to kill you here locally. Black says, okay, I need to play here to get as many liberties as I can. That just makes the shape solid. If white gets to play A lot of liberties are going to be lost. So black plays here. He can also play a living move next, right? So white has to say, no, you're dead. But black gets to capture these stones. Black is dead locally, but these stones still are weak, right? They need liberties. So white keeps trying to get as many liberties as he can. White plays an Atari here, or black plays an Atari here, rather. And why does not B play O11? Right now? I'm guessing right now, right? Hmm. It looks strong, right? So there's got to be a reason he didn't play here, but I'm not sure what the answer is. So Miyamoto didn't address this. I'm wondering if now white can do this, but I'm not sure where that's going to go. It's a really complicated situation, right? And probably you can figure out and tell me later. I really don't know. I looked at this situation and pretty much realized that it's beyond me to read all the diagrams. But this looks like a strong move to me, right? If it works, you surround white and you're keeping maximum pressure uh, on his liberties. But black actually captured, so I'm assuming there's a reason for that. Another question I had, is why not here? That one's a little easier to answer because white has this Atari, right, at this moment. S12. Yeah, I think S12 has something to do with it, right? Um, White can always still cut that stone off, but I'm not sure exactly what white would do in this situation. Your guess is as good as mine. P10 maybe. Just fix the stone. Okay. But now if black just captures, it seems like he's gained, right? Because he's surrounded. So I don't think it's P10. Um, let's probably not get bogged down on that though, because even if we find something, I'm not sure if it's going to be correct. But what I can say is that white is essentially trying not to get squeezed here, right? So black can't do this at this moment, but after this Atari he can. So let me pass. If white doesn't play now, black can actually squeeze here, right? There's nowhere to go, and he's losing the liberty. So this move here is to preserve liberties and also to put some pressure on the A stone. So if we go back and remember at the beginning, black had a huge Moyo on the right side he was trying to build, right? But at this point, white has essentially destroyed it. He's even killed the B group, and there's almost no points in the A area. So that seems pretty good for white. So what does black have in compensation for that? What's black going to do next? It's got to have something good, right? Otherwise the game's just over. So far, white's pretty satisfied with the game because he's destroyed the right side. So what's black's next target? Top left? No. J6. Yeah, the J6 group. Right. So if you notice, while these exchanges were happening, black got really thick over here, and the A group can now be surrounded. So he goes ahead and does just that. Surrounds the group here. White Ataris. Black plays an empty triangle, but it's trying to poke out the shape. White captures here. Very important move, J8. Right, because white can Atari there for free, and then all of a sudden he's got all sorts of shape. Um, White didn't feel comfortable with connecting because black can just come out, right? So this is not an easy situation for white. Now black makes sure white can't connect from over here. Uh, Ugly shapes, but he's cutting. And now the question becomes, can white connect at A? And the answer is no. So white comes out. Let's take a look at some of the variations. If white tries to connect to save the tail of his group, black will play nice and solid, the same move that white actually played in the game. And now white has to figure out how to live somehow. He can attach here to try and get forcing moves. And if black plays here, white will actually probably live. This would be a mistake for black. Let's take a look. Can make those exchanges. Get forcing moves. Play here. So now white is about to live, so black has to get rid of that second possible eye. But the problem is black can, or white can push, can get this in sente. This move's important. And then can play here. And it's another situation where the A stones are actually in quite a lot of trouble. So if that works, white would be good. But black can actually play here, a little more severe. And this changes things a little bit. Notice that A is an important point, and black wants to be able to play there because it's kind of like an escape path for his B stone. So he's going to capture, and now he can play A to connect, right? So that's the plan. White would have to play here to disconnect. But the thing is, black can actually, it's kind of tight, but he can live here. And then all he's got to do is just calmly answer all of white's moves. And this whole thing is surrounded, right, and doesn't have two eyes. H4. H4. Like right now? H4 relied on. Okay, yeah, right. That A area is really important. Okay, so white comes out, and of course, black is going to capture these, right? So what's really interesting and what I really love about this game is that look at how many crazy trades and stuff they're doing, and the game is actually still even at this point. They're both completely in the game, which is pretty remarkable, I think, with how much fighting is going on. Let's see, where was white's next move? White plays this one to put pressure on these A stones. Black's got to make sure he's connected. And white gets this in sente. Black has to play nice and solid here. Let's take a look. If he ignores, white can play here, right? That's sente to kill the A stones. Black might answer here, try to keep as many liberties as he can. But white can push and then can play this move here, and now no matter what, it's going to be a ko. For example, if you play here, This one might not even be ko. This one's not even ko. This would just die. That one's dead. So where's the ko? This one would be the ko, right? Throw in, and then this ko. So that's no good. What if black plays here? Maybe this is better. This actually doesn't work either. White can push, can Atari. Black is going to connect because if you capture, it's pretty straightforward that these stones are just going to die, right? So A dies, B comes back to life. So he's got to play here. And now where's the next move for white? Here. This is a one move Tesuji problem. G1, good. That's right. So if black captures, you can just capture right back. And it's a connect and die. And if black captures like that, of course you can just take that stone. Okay, see you, Nico. Thanks for hanging in so late. So that's all just to show that black had to answer there. And now white is going to make sure that the rest of his group is out nice and solid. So that's sort of the end of that fight, right? Let's see, which one? Oh, probably this one. I would just call it a throw-in. I don't know if it has a name beyond that. But the idea is that it shortens the liberties. So black or white comes out. That's essentially the end of this fight. But black does have to worry about his B group. So he finally comes over and captures this one stone, just to make sure that that group is okay. White plays here. Miyamoto says this is correct shape. If black plays A, white can just answer at B and make a ko sort of shape. Black makes a peep here, which is nice. This stone actually helps a lot. We'll see in a bit. White answers. Black pushes and comes back. So now notice there's an Atari at A, and black is wondering how white is going to deal with that. And black plays here. Miyamoto said this is a defiant move. Just answering would be safe, but it's a bit too slow, and the game's really close. So he plays here. He's trying to get more. If black cuts in, he can make a ko shape because of the move he has here. Also notice that black's two cornerstones are not looking so hot. He's got to help those out. And he does so by playing here. White follows his move up, and black follows his move up. This is the nice sort of flow that you'll see in really strong players' games. Whereas in weaker player games, black might be more likely to help the A stone. But in this situation, black is really weak, right? So black has to be really flexible. So he goes after this one. White follows his move up. Black follows his move up. It's a nice flow. And now white has a really strong move. Where's the strong move for white? I'm talking about in this area with these two stones here. H18, nice. You got it. Good. Very strong move. This is the move that white has been planning with his moves over here. So if white just plays here, it's too slack. It's normal, but this isn't really a normal situation. So black could just push and then come back and settle himself pretty easily. Here white goes all out, and black's got to follow suit, take the stone. That gives white the counter Atari, and white's trying to take this corner. However, there's a bunch of Aji, and Shusaku uses it really well. He Ataris here. First, let's take a look at what if black connects. Does this work? This actually doesn't work yet. White will connect, and black will go to try and kill these four. But white's got this throw in. And if you take a look at this, black's actually one liberty behind because the liberties disappear. Whoops. Oh, he can't even play there. Duh. He's going to have to connect first, right? And black just doesn't have the liberties to pull this off. So he can't do that just yet. However, this move actually threatens to do it. So white captures. This is a really interesting sequence, I think. Let's take a look at what if white just connects and says, no, you don't have enough Aji to do anything here, so I'm just going to connect. Now black can connect. White connects. Black forces. Black will push. Here, notice that black saved the A stones, which means that these guys are cut off again. So we can't only look at the corner, we have to look at these guys as well. White will try to capture the 3 stones, but black has a strong move here. It looks like, well, that's not strong at all, right? Because white can just capture the 3 stones with A. But in that case, black will just come through at B, right? And kill the group. So white actually has to answer here. Let me show that really quick. If white goes like this, black will go like that. And he can kill these. And that's pretty successful. And so white would have to answer here. Atari, connect. White's got to keep black in. This connection is Sente as well because of the 3 stones. So black gets all those extra moves, and now he comes and does this. Now it actually works. White can throw in, poke, this is the sequence that Miyamoto showed. And white's actually dead here because he's never going to be able to approach from either side. So that would not be good for white. Pretty complicated variation, but kind of a cool one because you can follow everything. And judging by the way white played, it seems apparent that he read that out. So he fixed that, and now black gets to capture the ko. White's got threats that black has to answer. Black's got a threat here, right? Cut that whole chain off. White keeps using his threats on the bottom. Black threatens to run out with his 3 stones. And at this point, the ko is heavier for white, so he has to back off. So he backs off a bit. White Ataris, and they start kind of like round 2 of the ko. Black's threatening to run out with these guys again. And keep in mind, the A group is not out yet, and it doesn't have 2 eyes yet. So he's got to come out. Black captures, and white again has to back off. So white gained a little bit there. Black's not going to just connect the ko, that's a little passive. Instead, he's just going to help these stones by extending, and that puts more pressure on white's group as well. White really has to be careful with this group, so he's going to make some shape. Black captures to keep white separate from his other group. Then white played here. Miyamoto said this is a tesuji. Essentially, what it is, let's see, how did he show it? Essentially, white's willing to play a ko here. That's all that is. And he's got threats on the bottom, so black doesn't actually go for that. He makes the Atari here. This is from a long time ago, by the way, right? Move 45, white ignored that, and finally black's following up. White actually has to give this up, which hurts a little bit. But if he comes out, this is just too much. You've got the A stones, you've also got the B stones that are in trouble, and black can get forcing moves against the triangle stones. So the judgment was that he just has to give that up. A Panuki in the center this late in the game isn't necessarily that big. So we're talking about a couple points here, right? The board is mostly filled up, so it's not as bad as if this happened early in the game would be over. White still has to keep helping this group. And black follows up. Where's the shape here for white to defend his 3 stones? Proper shape. Hey Peter, you're late. N18, yeah, that's right. Good. And the reason for that is if white plays here, then this one becomes sente. So you got to be careful about that. This one, white, black can just get an Atari, but that's it. Black still wants to put pressure on this B group, so he's got to cut it off here first. And white is forced to try and jump here to connect. And with that connection, that fight's pretty much over too. So now we're getting into endgame here. Black Ataris. Let's see what comes next. Play some endgame here. And notice that these guys, there's still a ko for those. So black decides that now is the time to fix that. And he does so. White captures the stone on top. It's gote, but it's really big gote. Black jumps into this corner. And nice sente endgame there. Threatens to cut. White says, you can cut there if you let me cut at A. And black says, no, that's okay. I'm going to keep my territory. So black fixes, white fixes. Now black plays here. So why does black play A rather than B in this case? Wouldn't be larger? Yeah, I think it mostly has to do with sente, right? If white answers this one, black got it in sente. Um, whereas if black does this, um, that may be gote. Are you talking about this ko, hero? Okay, yeah. If black was losing this game, he could try this sort of thing. That's true. Um, but the game is really close, so black doesn't need to be doing that. So he just plays here to try and get it in sente. Um, white actually doesn't answer him though. He plays a sente move here. And he says, well, you could jump into my corner in the top right, but I'm about to capture your two stones. So black says, okay, I'm going to jump into your corner then. White threatens to cut the tail off. Black's got to answer. Threatens to cut the stone off. Black's got to answer. And then he says, okay, he let black in the top right, so he's got to make good on his threat in the bottom left. And he does. And now black follows up in the top right, because if he can get like an eye in that area, then he doesn't have to connect, right? If he doesn't get an eye, then he's got to connect all these. And that makes a big difference in the points. So white plays here. Black pokes. White goes to keep connected. Got to keep everything connected. At this point, black makes sure he has that eye in the corner so that he's not going to... this is actually a lot bigger than it looks because he gets to save all the points in this area. It's pretty big. So he does that. White plays an Atari here. And another Atari. Black's not going to connect that right away. He plays here. This white group is fine, but it can be forced a little bit. It doesn't quite have the... It does have two eyes, but it can be forced. Sente. And now white answers. Black Ataris to start this ko. And he's already got a threat prepared right here. So he gets to take first, essentially. White answers. And now we're just playing 1 point moves, essentially. Takes the ko. Little threat. Let's see, what's next? Threat here. This is going to be 2 times without a broken tree in a row. I'm becoming professional at this. Black actually ignores the ko for now, and he just decides that this is big. He threatens to cut, and he makes 2 points here. The game's actually not over, but they didn't record the rest of the kifu. So this is as far as we have in the game. And black actually wins this game by 2 points. Pretty incredible, right? If you consider the nature of this game. If you go back to, the craziness over here, the huge trades that got made, right? The whole Moyo got destroyed. He even died in his own Moyo. But then he was able to kill B. And even though there was so much tension and stones were being traded left and right, both sides, maintained their position, right? They were always right there in the game. Really shows a high level of play. Pretty impressive. Yeah, that was the game. Let me see. Next week is a game against Kishimoto Saichiro. Oh, it looks like this guy is a 4-dan also. So that'll be interesting. So far, we've been watching games where Shusaku is playing 6-dans and 7-dans. So maybe next week will be someone not quite as strong. Um, Shusaku still takes black in that game, though. We haven't seen him play white just yet. There's not that much commentary. Okay, so this one looks pretty short, so I'm actually going to consider maybe doing it midweek, like around Wednesday, instead of Saturday, just because it's so short. I can probably prepare for it in time. That was it, though. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you later. Thank you.